So initially I did not. Initially it was just content, SEO research, and content. I'm not sad about that. I think that was probably a good place for that first 6 months of my site. Then probably the last half of last year, when I was talking with you, you were encouraging me to do more of that outreach, link building. And so that has definitely ticked up. I would say it's a steady uptick in links. I don't have a number for you, but it's been steady. And I do outsource a little bit of that to the gal who does my Pinterest. So guest posting and things like that. I have her follow up. We also bought a list of basically influencers within our industry, just contact info. Nothing that I'm going to, I'm not going to load these people into our email tool or anything like that. But for outreach, it saves me a step of going onto every website and finding contact information. So we now have about 300 influencers that we can do targeted outreach to. So that's exciting. So that'll be probably in the next 6-9 months. And we'll just be offering guest post opportunities and things like that.
Okay. And where did you get the list? I'm sure some people are like, "Whoa, you bought a contact list?"
Yeah, it's not shady. Buying lists I don't love, but this one is a list that I'm actually on. So we bought it through FeedSpot. That's part of their platform and what they do. You could go line by line on their site and find them yourself. I'm too lazy to do that.
Yeah.
So, when I think it was $150, so maybe I'll get that money back out of it. Maybe not. I don't really care. What I want is the, ability to develop relationships with people that are doing good work. So it's worth it for me.
Yeah. And I think, at that price, because I had no clue how much it would cost. I think I've seen that site, but it seems like a bargain. You potentially could hire someone to do like the manual
Right.
checking, but that site, that platform is there for that specifically, right?
Exactly. And I assume they do it for lots of different industries too. I haven't obviously looked for that, but I'm sure for many different niches, they have lists of influencers.
Yep, that totally makes sense. So let's move to, before we move on,
Mhm.
so you don't know how many links or guest posts you've done. Do you have is it like less than 30 guest posts, would you say?
I'd say less than 30. Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then I suspect you have some natural links that have shown up over time, correct?
True. And when we get guest posts for our site, we also ask people to add a link from theirs. So that's the primary way that I do that is guest posts that come into me. I then ask those people to link to their own post from their site.
Do you have a pretty good success rate with that? Are people pretty open to it?
Yeah, we just say it's required.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Awesome. Well, with that said, how many guest posts have you published from contributors?
sure. Probably upwards of 40.
Okay. All right. So you
Yep.
probably have, I would just ballparking, you at least have over 50
Yep.
backlinks to your site, and it's across the site and all over the place. Okay, cool. And then you have the naturally occurring ones, which could be
Correct.
another. The site's been around long enough and you're ranking for some obscure long tail keywords. So my hunch is you probably got a bunch.
Yeah. The nice part about the guest posts linking back to us is those are highly relevant sites, right? So those are related to our topics, not just a link from some random who knows where they found us. So I'm hopeful that that is a bit better for Google to see that sites related to us are linking back to us.
And what do you have on your Write for Us page? Any tips for people on that?
So we do have a Write for Us page. I tell people that if they're making an inquiry about it, I would like basically a summary of their background. I would like a few topics ideas, but I also say that we will then pick the final topic, provide an outline. So I provide an outline for every guest post that we do, which is not normal. But that lets me make sure that all the SEO words I want are there. So I do like the subheaders. I might include a list of FAQs. That takes a lot more time, but that also makes sure that the guest post I'm getting back is still valuable from an SEO side and not just from a educational side, which is nice. But if you can have both, why not have both? So that's what I do for guest posts. And then on that page, I do say, you know, we request a link back to your published blog when we're done. So we don't hide that. It's right up front. No one has minded ever. So
Okay,
keep doing it.
cool. And then do you specify where they link from on their site, or do you care?
So yeah, what you and I had talked about earlier was it's not the best to have just two links going back and forth to the same content, right? So when I do a guest post, I'm linking back to their homepage, say, or a tool that they offer. When they give us a link, we ask them to write a dedicated, what I call a teaser post, which is just a short blurb about what it's about. We're featured on this site, and then a link to their specific article. So we don't have cross beams to the same piece of content on each other's site.
Mhm.
It's us linking to their homepage and them linking out from somewhere else to their individual post.
Perfect. Okay, and that seems to work pretty well. That makes
Mhm.
sense. All right, so let's move to the blog acquisition. Just can you break down what's been going on with that?
Sure. So one day out of the blue, I wrote you and basically said, do people do this? Is this something that people do? They buy small blogs or no? And you said, sure, that'd be a great idea. So what basically happened is I have a friend that I met through this project, of course, who had a small blog, but she wasn't really keeping it up anymore. It wasn't her priority project. She had other things that she was starting. And so there was basically a blog sitting out there with about 50 posts that she wasn't adding to. And it was like a guilt complex for her, which I understand, of, man, I should be keeping this current, right? I should be putting more content out there. But it wasn't something that she was enjoying doing anymore. So there was just all this content sitting out there and her over here feeling guilty, which seems silly. So it occurred to me, maybe I could just buy her small blog. She stops feeling guilty about keeping it up. She stops paying for hosting. She stops paying for anything about it. And I could take those 50 blog posts that are not SEO optimized yet. They weren't sitting on a site with high quality ads. And I could probably improve that content and basically have 50 pieces of new content for my site overnight, right? It takes time to move the content and do all of that, but essentially, I'm not waiting for writers to write posts. And I could do it all for less money than it would take me to hire someone to write 50 posts. So that seemed like a pretty great experiment. And now I'm in the midst of that. So we worked out a price. I basically asked her for traffic numbers, where her traffic comes from. Her site was primarily social traffic, which is different than my profile. Mine is mostly SEO. I bought all of her social channels with it. I bought her email list with it, which about doubled the size of mine, which is not a lot. It's like 300 people, but it's still more than I had, and that's great. And it's very relevant people. So the people who liked her site will also like what we are doing. So I'm now in the process of moving that content over for phase one and just getting it out there. And then phase two will be going back to every post and basically looking for the KGR terms that I could have within that post, updating titles, adding FAQs, making content longer and better. But really, it was just skipping some steps on having content that was ready to go. So I'm kind of excited about that. Now I want to acquire everything.
Do you have any idea how long it'll take to like migrate the content over? Do you have a scope of that yet?
So far, we migrated maybe a fifth of it, and that's in the past 5 days. So I don't think it'll take too long, a couple of weeks. Working with a developer on the back end stuff to get things rerouted and figure that out. I've never done that before, so that stuff's new. But I think once I do it and I learn what the process should be, it wouldn't be hard to do it again. So in the back of my mind, that feed spot list that we bought of 300 blogs, part of me wants to go back and see, are there some blogs that people aren't keeping up anymore that still have good content that I could just offer to buy? So
Yeah. And it's interesting, like, when you emailed me, I was like, oh, that is great. I mean, I've purchased some smaller
sure.
sites, and I think that fits, because I have the skills to like grow a site, but I've never like went out looking like, hey, I'm going to acquire a site. And, like you said, all of a sudden you'll get like an influx of 50 articles in a super short time, cheaper than if you wrote it, or, you know, um, originally hired a team and all that. So we'll have to check back in to see how that ended up working out. And it could be, gosh, I have no idea, but I mean, you're
I have no idea.
basically adding, let's see, you're adding 20% more
Uh-huh.
content like off the bat.
Right.
Now, how much traffic was her site getting?
Very little, like maybe I want to say 3,000 visitors a month, maybe.
Okay.
It had no SEO on it, and it had very little ads, like one strip of Google AdSense on the bottom of a post, like no in-content ads, none of that. So for me, part of why it was appealing was knowing that I don't need to make affiliate income off of it. I can also make ad income off of just, the 65,000 words that I bought, basically. And so I still have some confidence that I can make back what I spent. And even if I don't make it completely back, that's fine. I didn't go out and spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on a site. I spent, less than $2,000 to buy something that maybe could do some good. And it was great for her. And now we're both happy. So
Awesome. Pretty cool. Yeah. And I mean, if you just look at the raw numbers, assuming that the social traffic keeps coming, you're adding, a little more traffic to your site, a significant amount, not a
yeah,
huge, crazy amount, but it's, what did you say, 3,000
about
visitors
3,000
per?
a month.
Okay. Yeah. So it's a little, I mean, you'd potentially notice that if you got
Sure. Well, and I
3,000 more
think
per month.
once those articles are improved from an SEO side, they have a lot more potential. The other thing that we ended up doing, which was, I'll have to give credit to him, my dad's idea. She had basically an email magnet, a list magnet of a 5-day course that was an email course. I already have a list magnet and I wasn't really looking to change that. But there were 5 days of email content sitting out there that each had a video in them. And technically, I bought that too with the site. So basically, we took each of those videos and transcribed them into copy to give us essentially 5 new articles. So we
Oh,
took our email list magnet and turned them into 5 brand new articles that weren't out there before. So that was
oh,
kind
that's
of
pretty
interesting.
cool. And yeah, you highlighted something there. So you have, is it free labor from your father? Or do you pay him?
Yes, my retired father. So he reads all the posts that go out. So he's my editor, which is great. And yeah, we have kind of a complementary skill set. So that's worked out nicely.
That's pretty fun. Yeah. So you pay him hourly, or is
I
he a
pay
part
him
owner?
in pastries and iced tea. And so far, we've both found that to be a win. So yeah, it's
It's
really
funny.
fun though. It's the kind of project that we can just work on together, and it's something we do in our spare time. And he's retired, and I own my own business, so I work when I want. And yeah, I love it. There's really nothing about the site that I don't love. So
Very cool.
pretty cool.